Okay, so I decided to do my video on chapter 13. It's about Cassie Rosenberg, who majored in science communication and then took some graduate coursework in journalism. So she got hired to do a science blog for Scientific American magazine's website. It ended with her immersing herself in covering the lives of drug addicts and homeless people in one of America's poorest communities. So much of the magazine was blatantly sciency, and she thought that they sometimes forgot a bit of the human aspect in that. So what she intended to do was juxtaposition the scientific studies of addiction with the narratives of people living with that addiction. Her blog was entitled The White Noise because her view was that addiction and mental illness was the white noise behind many people's lives. Her editors were really encouraging of the approach, but the magazine's readers weren't at first. They thought her stories weren't science at first, and so they didn't really understand why she was writing those. But I think they eventually, came around. Her first and foremost goal was not to harm the people she was covering by writing their whole life story. She always informed the interviewees about the nature of her work and asked for permission to quote them. She would often show them drafts of her blog before they went public as well, before she had posted them. Pardon me. This seemed a necessity to her because many of her subjects were in legal disputes, like child custody battles and stuff, and that could be swayed by the public accounts of their lives. She also used their street names instead of their real ones because a lot of the stuff she was seeing was illegal activity. And so many people commented on the blog that seeing and hearing those narratives and what those people said really helped them understand loved ones or relatives that were suffering with similar problems. So it had a lot of positive impact. Working with a vulnerable population required an approach to information gathering that varied considerably from the standard approach and the ethical guidelines supporting them as well. She also couldn't help but become friends with some of the sources given how much time they spent together, which usually you don't want to get too close to your sources. But she figured with the subject matter and how delicate that information was and needing to be transparent with her sources, that was something she needed to do to get the information. She might have been able to get the same information, but not as in depth as she would have if she wasn't friends with them. One of the sources, or once some of the sources began to trust her, they started vouching for her to other sources as well. So her interactions with, she also had interactions with girls involved in child prostitution, and that posed another ethical dilemma for her. And so she was actually unwilling to interview underage girls because she could be putting the lives of the younger women in danger. On the rare times that she wrote about them, she would use pseudonyms and photos that didn't reveal their faces. She was often a witness to a lot of criminal activity, but she didn't report that activity as this would ruin her relationships with her sources and their willingness to tell their stories to wider audiences. The Code of Ethics in American Journalism would seem to support her choices, and the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics urges reporters of all media to follow four principles, which is minimalizing harm, act independently, be accountable, and transparent. And all of these she did, I think, very well. She ended the project after 4 years because it became clear she had explored the issues that she had set out to eliminate very thoroughly. And her initial hope to shed light on poverty and drug use solutions faded, and she eventually learned that there was little hope for getting people to care, which is it's extremely sad. She still believes that she's going to help explore those issues of poverty and stuff in the future. But I don't really know if this story necessarily made me more ethical, but confirmed what I think I would have done in that situation, which was being transparent and telling everybody and making sure that they were okay with what I was saying and showing them what I was saying and stuff like that. So I think it just kind of reaffirmed me that that's the right way to go about it in that situation when you're dealing with sensitive topics, stuff like that. So